everyone. Welcome UK Black Men Talk Show live on the one and only supremefm.com. Jealous Kind of Fella. That's by a gentleman called Garland Green. Jealous Kind of Fella. We're talking jealousy, we're talking relationships on UK Black Men Talk Show, a special segment with our special returning guest. He is the author of How to Avoid Making the Big Relationship Mistakes, an impact contributor to the award-winning documentary Looking for Love. He also is a certified relationship coach and so much more. Welcome, returning to UK Black Men Talk Show, Supreme FM, Nigel Beckles. Welcome, Nigel. Welcome.
Good morning, Annz. How are you?
I'm fine, Nigel. How are you?
I'm good.
How are you doing?
So far, so good. It's a lovely day down here in the sunny Kent. So yeah, all is well.
Brilliant, Nigel. So let's have your number and a word of how you're feeling right now in this moment.
8. And yeah, I'm feeling good. Good is my word for this morning.
Brilliant. So Nigel, jealousy is quite the topic. Now, your amazing article, you have so many articles. Last time we looked at understanding online trolls and abusers. And for this segment, we're going to unpack jealousy and insecurity in relationships. So Nigel, what areas from your findings, whether personal and or professional, have you identified as being at the root of jealousy, for example? So I know in your article you talk about the internal and external underlying causes. So whatever you want to share with our listeners with regards to jealousy and insecurity in relationships, what comes to mind for you?
Okay, well, they're both connected. Insecurity and jealousy are both deeply connected because insecurity often fuels feelings of jealousy. And with jealousy, there can also be a fear of being rejected, or there might be things from the person's past. Maybe they've been cheated on before, or they've got some other unresolved issues from their childhood, etc. So yes. Yeah, it's can be a very concerning issue if your partner's got insecurity or jealousy issues, because those issues can end up in someone being unalived, as they say in America.
Absolutely.
Because when you look at the stats now in the UK, on average 8 women a month are unalived by a partner or ex-partner. So then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what's motivating someone to that extreme? And often it's a case of insecurity and jealousy, or possessiveness as well. Because some partners have this view, well, if I can't, say the relationship's broken down, and I have to say it's usually men who do this to women. So possessiveness is another issue, because they might have an attitude of, well, if I can't have you, no one can have you. I mean, there was a case last month, I believe, the guy who murdered his ex-girlfriend, her sister and her mother. And that was only it didn't happen, it happened last year, but he was sentenced, I think, last week or week before. Yeah, but then, and so you look at that and you say, well, but he had broken up with him, so they'd had an 18-month relationship. She broke up with him. Then a few weeks later, he went round to the house and done what he did.
Ladies do say to me, all of this is happening out there. Women are being unalived, and the whole domestic abuse and all of that area. So we definitely acknowledge that, because we know that there are men out there doing that. And in my research, Nigel, I've also come across the rise, because I've got to put that in there as well, the rise of women unaliving men. There was a story, and I just quickly share this story. What's happening is couples are growing, they're growing together, and this gentleman, Nigel, used to go out partying and go to clubs, and he met a girl, much younger lady, and the wife caught them at their place, and the wife unalived the girl. And there's another lady unalived a gentleman, and she had it on social media when she tracked him I can't even say it on air, but she had him somewhere, and he was actually saying to her, stop now, it's stop now, you've gone too far. And then obviously they told us moments later, this is what happened. So I know there's a high percentage of men doing this, and the ladies are now doing the same thing to men, it seems. This epidemic, isn't it? And at the heart of it is the whole, like you say, the insecurity and jealousy, Nigel.
Well, you mentioned gender bias. And yes, women do very strange things as well. But by and large, I believe in stats and facts, and the stats and the facts don't lie. So overall, it's men who tend to be the perpetrators. Not to say women don't do it. When you look at it logically, you say, well, obviously men are bigger, stronger generally. So a woman, I suppose, is more likely to do something more sneak, put something in the guy's food or something like that. But in terms of physical assault, it's usually the guys who are doing that. Although saying that, I did see a story, actually, now I think about it. There was a story where the couple were doing some sex games. She wrapped him in cellophane as part of this game, and he ended up suffocating. So she can't remember what she got been charged with manslaughter or unaliving him. But yes, these things happen, unfortunately.
It does happen. Sometimes ladies do think that I think that men don't do anything wrong at all, but we do know definitely the statistics with regards to women being unalived, and I know there have been protests, and globally women are taking action, and it should be obviously for men and women to look at this epidemic. And as I say, the growing number of women that are turning violent as well. So it really is worrying. And you talk about the insecurities, and we look at self-esteem, individuals who struggle with their feelings. I collaborated with men who, some of them, Nigel, were physical with their partners. My colleagues didn't want to work with some of the men. Some of the ladies didn't want to, and they couldn't understand what I would want to understand what was going on for some of those men, because some of them wanted to change, and they just had this way of expressing themselves to women. One man said that he ended a relationship. The lady hit him first, and he just immediately hit her. He thought it was kind of like he hit him, he hit her, but obviously stronger, so she went flying. And he said he's never hit a woman before, and he just left the relationship. She was pleading with him to stay because she hit him first, but he said the fact that he hit her back, that stayed with him. It traumatized the man. So I got to see the side of men. I know that there's not empathy around that, but there are men who want to change the way that they...
Well, what you're describing in that scenario is known as reactive abuse. So basically she abused him first, and then he reacted. But the other thing you have to look at is, if a guy is being abused, he's less likely to report it for various reasons. I've got a story in my first book where a guy was being abused and he went to the police station. This is in the UK. And they laughed him out of the police station. To pull up your big boy pants and go away, kind of thing. So, and then the other issue is, if a man says he's been abused by his partner, he may be accused of not being manly enough, being masculine enough, etc. So there are quite a few barriers to a guy reporting that he's been abused. And then on the other hand, you've got to look at the fact that there are very few domestic abuse shelters or refuges for men. The vast majority of them are for women. And there was another case, actually. The lady got sentenced. That was a coercive abuse. So she was doing various things to him, abusing the guy basically over a period of time. And they had what they call it, a nanny cam. They had like cameras around the house. So it was recorded. So that was what was used in the case. And she got sentenced to, off the top of my head, I think it was 3.5 years in prison. And that was in the UK.
Right.
Yeah, so for abuse as well. But at the end of the day, the stats say, it's mostly women who lose their lives because of a partner or ex-partner.
It is worrying because we see all the time people just being unalived, just like that, man. And one thinks that they started out being all excited about each other and loving each other, and it turned to what it turns to.
I'm always one to say that there aren't many one-size-fits-all solutions. There are certain patterns you can look at in terms of, like, abusers can be quite charming and charismatic when you first meet them, because that's what draws you in the first place. So I always say, if you met someone, say you're on the dating scene and you meet someone new, abusers don't walk around with a label on their forehead saying, I'm an abuser. So basically, you don't know. You just meet people, and again, in human nature is that we always put our best foot forward. We always like to make a good first impression. So it's only when you begin to get involved, and then over a period of time, the red flags start to show themselves. But by that time, the person on the receiving end, they may well be, emotionally invested, financially invested, etc. So yeah.
Let me ask you this then, because for me, I'm realising that I'm thinking of the men who are not what I would call abusers, even though this might not go down well, even though they were physical with their partner. Because there are men who, like the man I described, where the lady hit him and he hit her back. Some men would say they would never hit a woman. If a woman slapped them in the face, they wouldn't hit the woman back. Mm-hmm. He said and must have been the power in which he hit her back, she went flying, that was in him. I've worked with men who are not what I would call abusers, but they are men who have been physical with women, and they have such a guilt and shame around that. So I guess for me, when I say it started out all happy, I'm thinking about their stories, when it started out them and the woman all happy, that other side to it. So we hear about the abusers, but the other side of men who have lashed out, just like women lash out. And I believe that those men wanted to change, and some of them did change. Some of them exactly what you're saying there, the abusers. And other men I came across, Nigel, they got angry and they lashed out. Provocation, but that's no justification.
Well, two things really. At the end of the day,
that thought for me.
Oh.
Can you hold that thought for me?
Okay.
And after the break, we can continue, and you can share those points for me after the break.